Okay. Well, if you're okay with it, I think we'll go ahead and get started. And we are live rolling. And so my name is Sarah Lewis. I'm one of the City Council representatives for Ward 4. Rhonda Adams is also a City Council representative, and we're here at the Ward 4 meeting. Thank you for attending. And come on in.
Hello.
Hi.
And good to see you. So I think we'll go around and do introductions. How are you?
Good. There's just no parking out there. It's wonderful.
I know. Well, this is Rhonda Adams, City Council representative,
everybody.
Position
Good to
1
see
and
you.
Position 2. And let's go. Actually, Bill, would you start us out with?
Okay, I'm Bill Muller, and I'm a Ward 4 resident
All right.
and a supporter of our council members.
Oh, thanks. I'm glad you're here.
Maurice Rankin, ditto, all of the above.
Thank you.
Larry Agus, also a Ward 4 resident.
Thank you.
And I'm Brian Waters for the police department.
Brian, thank you, Brian. And then we have Brian Pugh here from our solid waste and recycling program, and he's champions our recycling and really is the leader of the recycling program and helps us stay up to date. And I'll add that he comes regularly to the Environmental Action Committee and is instrumental in putting the recycling market results on the city's website, and that was something that the Environmental Action Committee requested and brought forward, and Brian really helped with that, just to help keep the public informed about the market for the products that
what happens to them, what they turned into after we recycle them.
Exactly. So, but Brian's going to talk with us about the recycling program, some of the additions, and so be thinking about maybe if you have questions or clarification as he's presenting.
Sure.
Do you want us to dim the lights?
Yeah, that might be helpful.
Laura, what do you think about everybody coming up and sitting around the
It
table?
might be
You can
easier
see
to see
yeah,
this.
it's just
Larry.
Yeah, let's do that. Come around
I
the
know that
circle.
folks at home
An
won't be able to see
officer.
it all.
Why don't y'all come up and join? That'd be great.
While we're doing, I'll just mention that we will have Brian talk about recycling, and then we'll go over a few agenda items that are coming up on the December 6th City Council meeting. And then if you have questions or comments from neighborhoods, and we'll take time for that as well. All right.
Okay, all right. Well, first of all, thank you for having me. We have a lot of things that are going on in our solid waste and recycling division. Of course, we always seem to, because the trash never stops and the recycling never stops. We're always busy doing things. But this past couple of months, we've really had a lot of things happen. And I know I was asked to come and talk about one of the things that's impacting Ward 4 in particular, which is the new recycling drop-off that has been planned for a couple of years now. It's finally starting to gel a little bit and ball rolling, and it looks like we'll be able to have this facility built in August of 2012. So in a nutshell, we have our facility over on 15th Street. And our solid waste facility is a transfer station, recycling center, and compost facility. We also have a recycling drop-off. That drop-off is very busy all the time. It's not unusual to have about 20 cars come through that facility in 1 hour every day. It's just constant. So when we had a recycling study done in 2008, one of the things that came out of that study, which is the R.W. Beck recycling study, if anybody wants to look at that, is on our website. We try to, like Sarah said, we try to put everything out onto the website so it's accessible for people and they can learn about what we're doing. That study basically said that the recycling drop-off was a good way for the city to actually make money at recycling. Unfortunately, with the cost of the curbside program and everything that we have, the cost of the program is more than the revenue generated from the sale of materials. However, when you break it apart and look at the drop-off just by itself, the revenue that was gained from the sale of the commodities collected at the drop-off were enough to sustain the operations by itself. So drop-offs are very sustainable. And one of the things that we wanted to do was take that model and expand it to the other part of the city, because it is on the southeast part of Fayetteville. It's not very accessible to
Oh, that's
I'm
good.
supposed
You
to be here,
remembered.
so thanks. I said it's 5 o'clock already.
You made it that time. Good job.
Okay. So this was one of the things that came out of that RW Beck study, was putting a new drop-off and putting it on the west side of town. We have as many of you know, all of you know probably, there is a, oops, there it goes, wastewater treatment plant on the west side of Fayetteville. And this was city-owned land. If you can see that little red area up above, I'll go ahead and point it out. This is the treatment area, wastewater treatment area. A lot of wetlands, and then that little area right there is the area that we're going to develop for the recycling drop-off. It's at the corner of Broyles and Persimmon. City-owned land. The city already had the land, so we didn't have to make any purchases on land. I have a rough, made enough. Here, can I just pass that?
Yeah.
And this is the second part of copy for that. Okay. So, but it kind of gives you an idea of what we've outlined for development of this site. In addition to just being a drop-off facility where people can come and drop off their recyclables, we're trying to gear this up to be an educational facility as well. We have a perfect opportunity to talk about, in addition to solid waste and recycling, wetlands, wastewater treatment operations, and everything here on this site since it's so close. Eventually there is going to be a trail that goes through this area, and the trailhead hopefully will tie into our recycling drop-off. So in the future there's going to be a lot more stuff here than there is even when we get it built in August of next year. But this is a perfect opportunity for us to tap recycling and have a place where we can invite school kids to come, give presentations, teach them about recycling, and move our agenda forward as far as trying to divert more materials from the waste stream. Scoot this over. And I kind of just blew it a little bit. I think David Juergens actually did this presentation at one of the town hall meetings recently, so I just kind of borrowed from him. What you see here is the same sheet that I just passed out to you. If you look at that, and this is McGoodwin, Williams, and Yates was the engineering firm that was selected to help us design this facility. The project budget is $426,000. So we're trying to, of course, stay inside that budget and develop this facility. But if you look at that, when you enter off of Broyles there, you enter the facility, you see two roads that shoot off to the right. The very first road that you come to that leads back to the back area is for the solid waste vehicles. So the public will not have access to that area. We'll have a gate up there that only our drivers have access to. That's because we want to make sure that we're being safe, and when we service these containers, we don't have the public out there with cars and everything. Because if you've ever been to our drop-off site now, the way it was set up, it's 100-foot wide by 200-foot long, and people will just drive their cars right in front of the bins. And so servicing the containers throughout the day, and even new people coming in, there's a lot of safety issues. Fortunately, we've never had any serious accidents or injuries out there, but the potential for that is there. So this design is made this way where the public comes in on the second exit, or second turn to the right, comes up there, they can park their cars right in front. There's going to be parking all along that front there. They can get out and access the recycling bins from that area. And then when you drive around that loop and you drive around to the back here, there's going to be a pull-out area for buses and stuff when we have school kids come. So this is a development that we're really, it's a low-impact development. We're trying to build this in such a way that it doesn't impact the environment, and it can be really a learning tool. Everything from the type of concrete that's going to be used on the site to the way that the water moves off of that site. So there's going to be a lot of cool things happening with this area. So the second little sheet here kind of gives you an idea of what the little building is going to look like. Of course, we are going to have an attendant at this site. This is, we don't have one at our drop-off now. Our drop-off now is so close to our operations that we can service it and maintain it pretty easily. except for the fact that people want to drop off all kinds of things, not just recyclables. We get all kinds of trash and different things there. So this site will be manned, and it will have set hours. And that's strictly to make sure that we don't get things dropped off on us that we have to discard later, illegal dumping and things of that nature. So this little building here is going to have an office. It's going to have a bathroom for men and women, a utility closet, and then the area just to the side where you see all those chairs is where we're going to be able to have our education area. Pretty self-explanatory in how we want to set up the building. Real small building. Any questions about that part of it? It's pretty.
I am curious. You said it cost about $400,000
Yes.
to build. What do you expect the recovery time? You said it was self-sustaining, and so I assume it's going to make money.
Right.
How long do you think it'll with the person? How long do you think it'll take to recapture?
When we looked at the cost of building it, and
Right.
we're projecting it based upon the only thing that we know that we can go by is what we currently do in our current drop-off.
Right.
So we are assuming that we're going to be able to get the same amount of materials from this site as we do in our current site. And when we ran the numbers and looked at it, now there is more cost involved with having to haul the
Right. I mean, well, you figure all that.
But
That'll all be factored in.
if I'm remembering correctly, it was like 2 or 3 year.
You will generate that much.
Yeah. Now, let's keep in mind that the commodity markets
Right.
change
Sure,
constantly.
sure.
So it's hard to project revenue based on a moving target.
Right.
In 2008, 2009, when the economy collapsed, our commodity markets went south in a hurry. But right now, this year, we've had pretty good sales. We're
Right.
over 600,000 in revenue gain from the total recycling program this year, which is really, really good since we're still in 2 months left in the year. Actually 3 months, because that was a third quarter result. But the markets, especially for paper, have dipped this last month.
Right.
And from what I've been hearing, the plastics are going to be dipping. So you got to take that with a grain of salt,
Right.
that knowing that the revenues generated from the sale of materials, you don't know what's going to be in the future.
Right.
So.
Well, I'm a recycler of cardboard, and I take mine. I'm located on the north part of town. I take mine up above Zero Mountain. Just fill up a pickup, and they help me throw it. Yeah, and they process a lot of.
They do.
A lot of waste. I don't know what whether
They do all kinds
you
of
wouldn't really be competing with them, would you? I mean,
No, not necessarily.
No,
This,
no.
the cool thing about this area is on the western part of Fayetteville, there's some new apartments. Even though we started apartment recycling, that was one of the things I was going to mention. One of the things that we wanted to target were the apartment complexes on the west side of Fayetteville, because admittedly, we haven't done a very good job of letting people know that we have a drop-off.
right.
When we started doing all this stuff, we actually surveyed the users of the site.
Right.
And what we found is that the majority of the users on the site are coming from out of the city. People that don't have access to a curbside program that we offer in Fayetteville. Like 72% of the users were outside of Fayetteville. And that shocked me, because I always assumed that place was busy because it was people in apartment complexes or didn't have access somehow to the curbside program. But really, it's people from outside the city that are coming in and dropping off their recycling.
So you expect to make a profit, I guess, off of them, don't you?
Well,
I mean,
we-
the other recycling is this, you separated that cost, they're generating about $600,000, just that little recycling drop-off.
No, just as a whole, our curbside program, our drop-off, everything that we've gathered and sold
Oh,
this year.
okay. So this won't generate,
Right.
itself
And
won't generate very much
Yeah, you gotta be
money,
careful, because
Yeah, I see
with
what
our
you're
solid
saying,
waste
yeah.
division, those costs are all lumped into our recycling program. So
Okay.
whether it's curbside or drop-off,
Drop-off, yeah.
it's all going into the same pot,
Same pot, yeah.
cover costs. But what I was getting alluded to on the study was when they broke apart that part for
Yeah.
the current drop-off,
Right.
they could show that it was actually a revenue generator.
So you're gonna generate about $200,000 a year.
Well, yeah, there again.
Oh,
you
I'm
can't.
I'm just trying to understand it.
Yeah,
That's
you
the
can't.
goal.
Yeah, it all depends on how much material we get,
Yeah, right.
and what the commodity markets are at the time
Right.
for the sale of material. So,
Right.
it's kind of an unknown, but yet the whole purpose of this is to provide more options for recycling and make it more convenient for people to recycle. And those folks that are on the western side of Fayetteville that don't have access to the curbside program in apartments, multifamily, stuff like that,
Right.
this will be a lot closer for them.
Right.
And then also we're going to benefit from being so close to Farmington.
And Brian, the
being able to
man,
do this.
just because there's someone there as an attendant does not mean they're gonna shoo away people from outside of
Oh,
Fayetteville,
no, no,
right?
no.
And someone's already asked me that, and I said, of course not, but then I thought, well, I should ask that and make
Right.
sure.
No,
Because that, and I think, Larry, what I've heard is that
Aubrey,
expecting
get
those
yourself
out
a
of
seat
town
where you
people
can
to
see.
take part
We
in
want them
this
to.
will even, we don't know, it could be even better, but having an attendant there are some folks that, I'm glad we're able to say this to anybody who might be watching, we're inviting outside of Fayetteville
Sure.
city limit people to participate, so
It's
that's
open to the
good.
public.
Right, and the hours, we haven't set in stone the hours of this, but I can tell you it's likely gonna be a Tuesday through a Saturday, something in the early morning time to mid-afternoon. You know, we like I said, we have to have one person there, he has to work 40 hours, we can't make him work more than that, so to fit the personnel that we have, those are probably gonna be the hours. Like I said, it's not set in stone yet.
One thing I'll just add, well, maybe I'll wait till you're, well, it's kind of related to what you were talking about with the
Okay.
markets and your question. Something that I've learned more and more about through just working with Brian and more about, and actually did a lot of I helped to start the recycling program at Washington Junior High in Bentonville. So it's like I've been learning about recycling and one thing that's different. So from that program to this program, the thing about Fayetteville that I really learned is the fact that it's the clean stream that really helps us maintain our buyers during those economic dips. So when the commodity prices go drop for us, so we can't sell our product for as much, then we maintain our and buyers are going out of business. We're able to maintain those more solid buyers because we have a trustworthy product stream because of our separate products. So number twos are with plastics and glass and everything's already separate. If you have a single stream, it's a dirtier product stream, and so it's not as trustworthy. And so in a market that's iffy and buyers are going out of business, the good solid buyers choose Fayetteville because they can trust the clean product, and that helps us not dip so low in that type of economy, which is what Brian helped teach me on that. I didn't really realize that, and I didn't understand that. And the other part I would add is that citizens can help maintain the market by closing the loop. And when you're shopping, look for recycled materials. So when you purchase cereal and you purchase syrup, look to see that the packaging was made out of recycled material, because that helps the recycling market, and because somebody has to buy that and sell that material.
Right, and that's one thing that's kind of been lost. And I mean, recycling's gotten more popular, really it has. But that's the one thing that you kind of lose sight of, is the fact that to make recycling work, it is a feedstock for a manufacturing process. And those people that are making the new boxes or the new containers or the new carpet or whatever they're making have to have a feedstock that's clean and dependable and consistent. And that's one of the things that we try to do here with our program, because since we are a source separated program, meaning our drivers separate on the truck, our drop-off has it all separated at the drop-off, and so it's easier to bail, it's easier to keep separated, and we don't have the issues of contamination that you many times find in the single stream. Single stream is more popular because the collection costs are less, because you basically treat it like you would your household waste. You have a container, you put it on one truck, it gets sent to a center, but at that center it has to be separated. And even though the technology has gotten better for separating that material in the single stream process, you still have a lot of cross-contamination. So, thank you
Those
for
guys are really good at it too. I like to watch them sometimes.
They're they work so hard at what they do, and they're out there whether it's 20 degrees or 100 degrees.
I'm amazed how fast they work at the curb.
Right. So I guess right now, I know you have other things to talk
Okay.
about, and we've kind of talked about the drop-off, and nobody, I think, has any questions
So
about that.
August is the goal?
August 2012.
Okay.
Hopefully, this has been delayed up till now, and so now we're starting to get this
Ready.
going, so, yeah. But that's just one of the things we have going on. I mentioned earlier that we have several things this past couple of months have just been real hectic with what we've been doing. One of the things that we are excited about is the 337 plastics recycling. And Bill, I think it was you, might have been, I can't remember, but we were talking about not only at our drop-off, we're taking this stuff, but the Ozark Natural Foods. Yeah, Ozark Natural Foods now has a area set up where the city has a container, and we are taking the plastics there as well. So there's actually 2 areas in Fayetteville now where you can recycle number 7 plastics. We do not take it at our curbside truck because the truck is not set up for that. Since we are source separated, the way we do our plastics, 1s and 2s, each one has its own compactor behind the cab of the truck. We didn't have space to add a 3rd. It's going to take some truck modification. So there is cost involved with that, and that's something that we're going to hopefully get into in the future. The other reason is this is a brand new market that has started for the 337s. One of the reasons we've never taken 337s is because domestically there was nobody actually buying this stuff. The only people that were buying it were overseas in other countries. And you can never be sure what was happening to the material. If it was actually being recycled or how it was being handled or treated or whatever, and what the final products that were being made from it. So now we actually have a market that opened up in Pryor, Oklahoma. It's called Preferred Waste Solutions. And what they're going to do with the 337s is turn it in from a container and bottle back into a plastics to oil process. So they're going to be making the synthetic crude oil out of this type of plastic. So they don't need to have number 1 bottles just by itself or number 2 bottles just by itself. They can actually take a mixture of different types of plastics and use it in this process. And so it's been something that we've been watching over the last couple of years because I've been reading about this stuff as it comes up in magazines and trade associations and stuff like that. But it was happening on the East Coast, and it was happening on the West Coast, and now we actually have a facility that's being built right here in the Midwest, right in the state right next to us in Pryor, Oklahoma. So it's really exciting, but we want to make sure that we do it slow and deliberate and make sure that this market's going to be here in the future. Because when you start taking something and the public gets used to recycling it, if that market goes away, then you have all sorts of issues trying to get rid of it. So, here's some of the examples of the things that can be
This is 1 and 2.
recycled. That's 1 and 2 right there. So those are the 2 that we already take.
We already take these. This would be like a milk jug too. And then there's more milk.
Here's a good example.
Oh, there you go.
Arizona. This kind of has that cloudy look to it. And you would think, oh, that's number 2. Well, no, it's number 7.
Oh.
Number 7 is other. Actually, this might be a mixture. Ah, it is. Number 5 and number 7. So we wouldn't be able to take it either way. But now, this is a type of product that we will be able to recycle at our drop-off. And the bin for the plastics are right next to the other 2 types of plastics. So we try to put them together.
So 1 and 2 we still take it at the house
Yes.
or at a
Curbside.
I guess you'd say.
Right, so we'll continue to do those. How many people have these?
Oh, yeah.
So these are number 5s. And so this is something that we'll be able to take. Lids don't really matter too
So
much.
you leave it on.
You can leave lids on there.
Good.
This one, that's what this is. Oh, this is not.
But, and it doesn't matter that they
Wait, what
still
was that?
have
Number 5?
food residue in there.
Well,
Is that number
we like to
5
have it.
5 and 7,
Yeah.
a mixture.
Basically, that
This is
just
5.
makes it easier for us to handle it. I know that the Preferred Waste Solutions would prefer to have it a cleaner product, because they don't want to mess with the food and stuff that comes with that as well.
But a lot of people reuse something like that with a good substantial lid several times before they throw it away.
Sure. Yogurt cups.
Yeah.
I love eating yogurt every day. It's killing me every day. I didn't know what to do with this. Now I can recycle these. The yogurt cups.
What number is that? 5?
Yeah, no. This is actually number 5 as well.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
So I reuse those all the time.
Well,
I did notice, last time I bought a plant at Lowe's, they have a program for take back, which is probably better than
then recycling.
doing it this way, because you can reuse it. But if you do have excess amount of these, which a lot of people do, we can now take this with our 3 through 7. And the thing with the 3 through 7s, the 1s and 2s, we always say a bottle. It has to be a bottle. What we're saying with the 3 through 7s is it has to be either a bottle or a container. Because since we put that container out there, we've noticed that we're getting all sorts of things. Toys, big styrofoam blocks, vacuum hoses. We're getting all kinds of stuff that really don't need. We want bottles and containers. That's what they want. Bottles and containers.
How big an operation is this deal over in Power? They gonna produce a lot of,
Well, I'm not sure how many gallons per year
They
or
produce.
barrels per year. Or
what it costs to produce? That's kind of amazing. What it costs to produce something like that?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Is it profitable? It's not subsidized, is it?
I don't believe so.
I don't think so. They just set up an
They
operation?
didn't get any grants to begin this.
No, that's a tree.
Now, here's one thing, we said 3 through 7s, right?
At the bottom.
How many people get these right here?
All the time.
In that little list.
If you buy berries, strawberries, blueberries, if you buy salad, a lot of times you get these clamshells. This is actually number 1 plastic. And these are mostly made from recycled bottles, which is great. However, they don't melt the same as the plastic bottles, and so you can't put them back with the plastic bottles. So even though we're saying number 3 through 7, these are number 1 plastic, they can still go into this mix with the 3 through 7.
Oh,
So
okay.
now we have a place to put these. So
Okay.
Brian, are they labeled on the bottom?
they are, it says number 1,
It says
PET.
1, but we should put them in 3.
Yeah, I always wondered
And
about that.
it gets confusing, and this is so hard because of the fact that there's so many different types of plastics out there, and you can't mix, even though they're saying one's in bottles and one's in clamshells, they're the same
Yeah.
resin, you can't recycle them together. But in this process with the 3 through 7s, we can. So those can be placed into the 3 through 7. This is another example of a number 1 container. This is a microwavable tray. It's a number 1.
But it won't go in, won't
But it can't go with the
these.
bottles, but it can go with the 3 through 7.
Okay.
So we can take those.
Good to know.
This is actually number 6. I believe. Number 6, solo cup. Maybe we can recycle that.
Wait, watch your smart one. I
Oh,
was
that's-
guessing.
Number 5,
That's what I have to
sort of like a butter tub
Why
right
you
there.
look so bad?
That's number 6.
One more.
Number 7.
Are you really?
Number 7. That's probably number 6.
I hate throwing these
this is
things
number
away.
6.
So the main use for all of these 2 through 7s will be just mainly
Going back to a
going
plastic.
back to make another level of fuel.
Right.
I mean, go back and convert it. I guess it'd be working a car.
Yeah, and I'm not sure what the end market of the synthetic crude oil is. Whether it's a fuel market where they turn it into a fuel or it gets
Right.
turned back into another plastic or
So
something.
yeah, that's what I wondered, whether,
But
if
in
you
fact-
think fuel would be so cheap, you could never make it come out. You'd have to go to, you know, if you fracture fuel, most of it goes off and there's little bits that are
Yeah.
caught that are really valuable.
People
And
throw these
so,
things away.
but it probably will have some, it's gotta have some secondary use.
Wash
It'll
every
never come out
people
on
this.
it.
And the thing that I get excited about is by no means is this gonna replace drilling
But you
oil
get
or
too
something
many
like
of
that.
Well, I wasn't thinking of that, I was just thinking if they could ever make it break even.
Yeah.
Is that like shoes? Can you have too many shoes?
I visited quite a bit with the guys
My
who
wife
do
says no.
the cardboard
No, I think
recycling.
you can.
And that market jumps all over the place, and they say they make money, but it's pretty rough.
Those
Right.
2 are different plastics.
Pill bottles, another
Yep,
example.
one's green and one's purple.
Pill bottles are now 3 through 7.
Yeah, that's number 5. So,
Okay.
Okay.
so we can take all that stuff now. But I just want people, especially at home, to know that it's not being taken curbside, that it's just being taken at the drop off.
Okay.
And there are 2 locations in Fayetteville to do this. One is on the southeast part of Fayetteville off Happy Hollow Road, which is off 15th Street. And the second is Ozark Natural Foods.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, so Ozark Natural Foods has a box that the city has placed out there.
Okay.
And so we're working with Ozark Natural Foods to help.
I saw a note about the plastic bags.
Thank you for saying that. I said earlier we want just the bottles and containers. We were getting all sorts of things in there. We don't want the plastic bags. In this process that they go through, when they get all this baled material, they'll take it and they'll kind of grind it up to begin with. Before they run through the process, those plastic bags can get wound up in all of their machinery and cause them all kinds of grief. So we don't want plastic bags with this. We always tell people, you got your plastic bags at a store. Most all the stores that I know of now have take-back programs for plastic bags. So you can just take it back to the store next time you go and drop it off with them. And then quickly, the last thing I wanted to mention was the apartment recycling. We have started apartment recycling with 2 major apartment complexes, the Cliffs on Crossover and North Creekside on Leverett. And so it's a one day a week recycling collection where we actually bring containers out to them. The council is going to be getting an agenda item here soon about the cost of doing that and how we're going to pay for that. But we have started apartment recycling for large complexes. It's over 100 units. So if there's any apartment folks out there that want to visit about, and there are over 100 units, if they want to visit about recycling, we'd be happy to discuss and hopefully get you started in a recycling program. So.
I have a question related to that, and we've received letters about mobile home park.
Okay.
That is there a change? I don't know what the letter is.
On the ordinance?
Yeah.
Right. That, another thing that we have going on is this solid waste and recycling plan that John Coleman and his group are working on. Part of that process is an ordinance review of our Chapter 50 solid waste ordinances.
Okay.
So I know where you're going with that, with the
It's like
mobile home stuff.
It's kind of like, is it a multi-family or is it single home? I think that's what
they're
the
classified
question is.
as commercial.
Okay.
Many mobile home parks have commercial dumpsters, which don't have access to the curbside recycling because it's not a residential service. However, when we went to the CART program back in 2003, some mobile home parks received carts. So now we have this issue of some receiving it with recycling, some don't, the fairness of that. And so it's all going to be reviewed in our ordinance review process.
Okay.
And hopefully we'll be able to overcome that and make it more
And it's not just
fair.
mobile home parks, there are a couple of condominium
Right,
units.
townhomes the same way.
Same thing,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
They got a dump, if they have a commercial dumpster, then they're commercial. The ordinance says that, basically, really it says anything over a duplex is commercial. So triplexes, fourplexes, everything like that is really a commercial collection for solid waste. And so hopefully we'll get to line out some of those issues with this ordinance review.
Okay. So I'll watch for the ordinance review committee.
And that's part of
But
that'd be
that
coming
is
through.
specifically a word for Trailwood, the ones that we're all trying to watch and be concerned about, because
Sure.
there are Word 4 folks.
Yeah.
Sarah, on
Yeah.
this Nalgene.
Yeah,
we can
I mean,
talk
that's mine.
about
I'm
that.
not planning to throw it away, but better to reuse.
Right, but was there some criticism of the bid that the public had about?
I just brought
was
it
a good
as an
A
example.
good kind to use or not?
Oh, I don't, yeah, well, that's what I've heard, that it's okay, but I brought it as an example of a number 6. That if you
What's this?
chose to recycle it, is that a 7?
I guess it's a 7. in the
7,
truck, but
okay.
yeah,
If you chose to throw that away, it would be a 7.
yeah. It would be in
That
this
looks
new
nice,
category.
Brian.
It would be in the 3 to 7 category.
But
Hopefully
you're
you'll
not
just
throwing this
reuse,
one
no.
Is that it?
Well, I was
I'm
That's
gonna
our
go through there and get all my
That's our
stuff back.
current
kind of
I was
expensive.
taking my left
Right.
eye, so this last picture.
I just went
The
through
new
my
one
house
won't be
real quick
anything
to
like
find
that.
the
It'll be
examples.
like
Because I
Very
wasn't
nice.
sure, it's kind of a backup plan just in case.
And I think it's a good time to encourage everybody to use your recycled shopping bags every single time. I'd never go in a store without them. And
Right.
it's so easy
That
if
is
you
a
just
good
get in a
point.
habit in it.
I just
So-
put them in back in my glove box, and then they're right there when I go back in the store. And it's way less mess in my
They're
house.
so nice to have those handles on them and.
Any other questions for Brian?
Yeah, I got a couple of
Okay.
questions. And one of them, I heard you say, when I came back from Never Never Land, I was off somewhere, and I heard you say that the number ones, you can now include with the 2 through 7s if they're container type things and don't fit the bottle definition. How about the number 2s? Is
Same
that-
thing.
Same thing, okay.
Right, if they're, you might have something like this, that's, even though this is number 5, you might have something like this that is a number 2.
Uh-huh.
Can't go with this,
Mhm.
but it can be put into the
Okay.
3 through 7
Okay.
containers and stuff.
Now, how about shapes for the 1s and 2s that are curbside?
If it's
What
a
are
bottle,
It's a bottle?
yeah, if the top is smaller than the base,
Mhm.
and they typically have a screw top,
Mhm.
that's kind of the definition of a bottle.
Yeah.
Now you do get stuff like this, which you'll have number 2 containers like that, but it's got that top to it. So top smaller than the base, screw top is usually typically considered a bottle.
Okay.
And right now, those are the only types of plastics that we're taking through the curbside. It's just 1s and 2s and bottle.
Okay, so something configured like a peanut butter jar, which is a cylinder.
Here we go with the confusion factor.
Yeah.
Peanut butter jars can be recycled with,
I've done it.
yeah, they're very similar to that. Even though they're straight up and down, they do have that screw top, and the people that recycle the bottles can accept those with that mix. So plastics, I know, you give me that look like, oh my gosh.
Okay.
Plastics are so confusing to people, and it's hard for people in the recycling industry to convey what is recyclable with with the different types of plastics.
Especially when the number on the bottom
Yeah.
says 1, but
And
you're not
that's-
supposed to put it in there.
There's been a whole review of that process as well.
Yeah.
And so we're going to probably be seeing in the near future a change to the way that they label these containers, because it is so confusing. Now you're going to get these little symbols on the bottom of these saying mostly recyclable or sometimes recyclable, or
Is that a national?
it's a national thing.
standard?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because of the
Who
fact
heads
that
that up? Is that EPA?
Packaging Council, I think.
Packaging Council, okay.
So I'll
Sustainable
tell you,
Packaging Council,
I had to
SPC.
go look at some emails to make sure.
Is
Yeah,
it,
it's
is it as simple as, if it's a 1 or 2 and has a screw top, it can be recycled
Yes, sir,
At curbside.
at curbside.
at curbside?
But we are now able to take, as you can see, a whole
A
variety
whole
of
bunch
other
of other stuff
At the
down
drop.
at the
at
center.
the drop off. We just, let me reiterate, we don't want the big block styrofoam, plastic bags, toys, vacuum cleaners, things of that we have found in there recently. We don't want all that. It's just bottles and containers of the 3 through 7s.
Now, does your plan for the new center include some sort of a display that says yes, no?
Yes, yes.
Kind of like
It's
they do
gonna
at
have
airports,
pictures.
like at the
Yeah.
airport, they have a picture of what you can carry on.
We're gonna have pictures of things
Yeah,
and try
uh-huh.
to make it more
Yeah.
user-friendly and educational.
Mhm.
Yes.
Super job.
Yeah, thank
Brian.
you
Y'all
for all
did
your
a
hard work.
fabulous job.
Good at explaining it, so thank you. Very nice.
Thank you.
Don't steal my Nalgene.
No, I'll give you your stuff back. I gotta take the rest of my, that was actually yours. Take my props back with me.
Yeah.
All right. Oh, you're fine. I was going to do, it looks like you probably have some things, I was gonna point out some things on the agenda, that were coming up. Well, Rhonda and I and the rest of the council had a budget meeting on Saturday morning. So so that's part of our city council meeting that's coming up, is the review of the 2012 budget. And, so, well, I can share with you like just summary, where did it go? Here it is. Summary key points. And I hope that, and feel free to get on there, and it's all in the packet. I send out the agenda, and there's a link to to our packet for every agenda item. You can go in and see the same packet that we read. And so, please go in and you can look at that. But just some key points here. You know, then, you know, nothing's been decided. This is what happens is the administration proposes a budget, and in 08, I think it was Bobby Farrell brought forward a resolution requiring that the proposed budget be balanced. But that was a resolution in 08 that was passed unanimously by the council. And so it is a balanced budget. It has to be proposed in balanced form.
Can you tell me what balanced
Balance
means?
means not in the, it has to be not in the red. So there has to be a proposed mechanism for balancing it out, so no zero sum.
Okay, for clarification, dipping into the reserve in order to balance the budget,
Right, they're not proposed,
that's
right,
acceptable.
that's not,
As long as you say it up front.
right, so
Essentially
right
what
now.
it is, you say we're
they're
gonna
not
use so
propo-
much of it this year.
Yeah, they're not proposing any mechanism right now for whether to go into reserves or not. Right now, they're projecting there will be enough sales tax to cover this.
Okay.
If there isn't enough sales tax to cover it, there is enough reserve, and they show,
Yeah.
he outlines it, they show that there's plenty of reserves compared to what's required to be in reserves to cover the existing budget, the way it's been outlined. Is that the way you understood? Okay.
Go ahead. Yeah, there's a possibility of using $500,000 of reserves.
Right, there's a possibility of doing that if there isn't enough sales tax to cover that. Does that make
Okay.
sense? So if sales tax doesn't achieve the level where they're projecting, then there's about $500,000 that may have to come out of reserves.
Okay,
There's
now,
plenty in reserves.
That would be decided later on at that time. So right now, let's see if I can find that. So sales tax for 2012 is projected to be approximately 3.2 over the 2010 actual revenue and flat over the 2011 estimated collections. So no change over 2011. So right now, it's up over 2010, and they're projecting that will stay the same, not increasing. Property tax for 2012 is projected to be up 2.4% compared to estimated 2011 collections. Franchise fees projected to be flat. Building permits are projected to be lower. Investment earnings projected to be flat. And all other revenues projected to be lower. Other revenue being grants, federal and state grants will probably be lower, is what they're projecting. So, let me see here. And let me find that part. That's what my question was, because like early in the discussion we had, there was a page here that showed it. Oh, here. So the shortfall, general fund proposed budget revenue is 33 million, and the general fund proposed expense is 34. Now, if sales tax can't cover that expense, then there will be a 500,000 sorry, 500,000
let's get that
shortfall.
decimal right.
Holy cow. Now,
I don't
and
have my notes, but I think I remember that one.
that's the shortfall.
That's
Now, where that
projected shortfall.
would come from is not proposed. It's not something we're deciding right now. What we're looking at is the exact budget and what gets what.
What percentage of the budget is soft money, grants, and, it'll be in there, what,
Yeah, so let me look here.
I'm just curious, I just,
Soft money, well, it depends, like,
probably most
It's-
grants would fall in that
yeah.
category.
sales tax, I don't know the percent here. Sales tax, it depends on who gets the grant.
Well,
So-
I'm just thinking in general that if indeed we really get into deficit reduction, then
Right,
that part of the budget would seem to me to become the most questionable entity out there. In other words, if the feds are giving you so much this year and you're gonna get half as much. I just wonder if it was a significant portion of it.
I can find that out.
I'm just curious,
Yeah.
you don't have to look for it, I just thought maybe you had it right there in front of you.
No, well, I remember talking about that, and that's a good question, and that's why I think why they're projecting that that's gonna be down for sure.
Well, I think
They're
there's no
saying-
question, yeah,
yeah.
that would, it could dry up
And
on.
I don't, but as far as how much, let's see, revenue.
Do they have,
Right.
they have a number for it, like
He
$1
didn't
million?
have it,
They don't have a
no.
number, no, okay.
I can show this, I can pass this around, cause I have another copy, do you wanna look at that?
Well, I
That's his little summary. That was our initial summary, this is the more in-depth summary. Let's see. So right now, so for 2009, general fund that was adopted was 35 million for the, general fund. Hello?
Hey, sorry, like.
No, you're fine. And then the proposed budget for 2012 is 34 million, so that's,
That's in the general fund.
That's the general fund.
fund, and that's the,
I don't know if you
Overall
pass it around, you
budget
can
is-
see the little graph, you can see that the city's funds are divided up into the general fund, which is a lot of service comes out of there, a lot of parks and shop and transportation, but then other things like the water and sewer, those are enterprise funds where that's pretty set.
Debt
Because you
service
can't
and-
use
So
water
it's-
and sewer fees for anything but water and sewer.
Right.
You know, so that's really what we're looking at.
But I guess block grants could be affected.
Mhm.
That, I mean, that's why I was looking
Yeah.
at that,
Very
yeah.
much.
Yeah.
All of that would be,
That's
huh?
a good point, that's a good
That
example.
could- That's one that could really dry.
Definitely, so that's community development.
Right, there's a bunch of, it's mixed, I couldn't.
Okay,
sort
well,
of-
I mean, there's a good, thank you, there's a community development block grant, so for
Right.
2012, it's projected to be 0.5% of the
Right,
budget.
yeah, right.
So it's, I mean, it's.
Well, that one, but
it
then
helps
you've
a
got a
of
lot of
people,
other.
but- Mhm.
So I just
And
wonder if it
also-
was, that could be, if it changed, could be something that could affect you 3 or 4% altogether.
And would affect a lot of people, because remember, like 80-some% of our budget is the people that
People, yeah,
provide the
right,
service.
and if they're being paid on those grants, then it's
Yeah,
a
it
kind of a
affects that.
scary
Yeah.
scenario.
Either way. And that, that comes from the state, I think, community development block grant is. the
and it might be
state.
good to ask Yolanda to come sometime and talk a little bit about
Yeah.
community development block grants, because, for example, the one that we have that has been used for the free clinic, the Fayetteville Free Clinic, it was only
Right.
for, not for people, but
Right.
for the building and for the
Right,
roof and
right,
for.
yeah.
So it could be, I would like to
I
hear
bet,
her
well,
come
you
talk
bet Paul, I
about.
bet Paul Becker can
Uh-huh,
tell you a
and-
minute, yeah.
Yeah,
he-
those
he'd
grants
be-
run, I
yeah.
think she does a lot of work with those community
Right.
development block grants, but they are, I think it's about, so the general fund is under that one
Right,
category
right.
that's different from the overall city budget. Debt service can't be touched and,
Right,
Yeah, because this one's interesting. So for all the different parts of the city's budget, the general fund makes up about 28% of of every penny. That includes all the enterprise funds and everything. And then you get into, which is community development block grant is not part of the general fund.
Okay.
So that's separate. So if you get a community block grant, you have to spend it on those programs.
but it doesn't factor into your budget then,
Not what we're
at all.
talking
Not
about.
what you're
Not
talking
the
about.
30%
Yeah, that's
general.
clarified that.
Yeah, so this, I think this is in there, if you wanna look at that as well. But, and if you want us to send this to you, we can.
and it's on the website too, on the city website. It's all there, and it's very good explanations attached to some of it.
One thing that, we're talking about there is 200, this year we've talked a lot about, with the floods and everything, we were talking about the drainage issues, repeated drainage issues in specific areas around town, and on Ward 4, especially different areas where they're repeatedly flooded over and over again, and even in just 1-inch rains. And right now, in the general fund, there's $200,000 budgeted for stormwater management or drainage, and which isn't even a drop in the bucket for the amount of fixes that need to happen. So that's something that, it may not affect this budget, but it's something that the community needs to be thinking about is how do we manage that? What do we need to do? And do we need to move things around? Do we need to be looking at how, of course, we need to be looking at how we're planning our city into the future, but we've also already made some errors in how we manage stormwater. So lots and lots and lots of calls this year around drainage and difficulties with drainage. So something that is an ongoing conversation. And then another agenda item that's coming up, and we mentioned this before this meeting, but this meeting will have the microchipping ordinance on it, which is an ordinance amending, repealing and placing the annual license and tag ordinance, so, and replacing it with the microchipping requirements. And essentially what it is instead of a license like a tag, there will be a microchipping. And if an animal arrives in the shelter 2 times, on the second time, it will be required to be microchipped. One thing, it comes out of the Animal Services Advisory Board, which is a volunteer committee, and they're recommending that this pass. I think I need to hear from you all, and I'm getting some calls. I'm certainly supportive of minimizing euthanasia at the shelter, minimizing dogs and cats that are running loose, and getting dogs and cats back home as quickly as possible, and minimizing their arrival at the shelter with a microchip. As I understand it, they can swipe the little thing right over it, and they can take the animal home before it even has to go to the shelter. So that's written in the description of the amendment. But then I'm hearing that microchip can cause some problems with the animal and its little back, and also
Cancer.
Yeah, some sort of
Yeah.
cancer, like very rare cases, but that's apparently been documented. So, I guess there's pros and cons to everything, but I would like to know, like weighing all of these things, as with most things, I know we've mentioned it before, but since it is on the agenda this time, what's your perspective?
We've used microchips for 2 or 3 pets now. And I think that's a great idea, but you still need a tag, because your neighbor who gets the animal doesn't have a microchip reader.
Right.
And a lot of times they can look at the tag and have a phone number, or even if they just maybe they call the company that maintains the microchip records, and they can get your phone number and your address from that. But you need something that the ordinary person can read with an instrument.
Yeah. I think the state law doesn't change with rabies tag. So the rabies tag would have to be, it's still a part of, it doesn't change with this. So that is one thing. But I agree, boy, the personal ones are the best. The Sarah Lewis 479-263, that's the most efficient way to
But
get your
there are
dog
some
back.
rumors going around, I think. One rumor that a Ward 4 citizen asked, Justine carefully answered was, is there only one company that our city Animal Services Department can read the tags of? And that's not true. Our city office can read all 3 companies that are out there. And does every company charge an annual fee? No, every company does not. And would a vet deny services on an animal if you didn't agree to pay him the $59 or her the $59 to get it? I talked to my vet, and the answer was absolutely no, would not refuse to treat an animal unless you agreed to spend the $59 at that office. So I'm appreciative of the call today. I got one, I think you got the same one, and some other emails that I've gotten from citizens, because there's some things I hadn't thought of. People are thinking of things, but the cost is something that bothers me a lot. On the other hand, it costs to have an animal, so how can we help with that as a city?
Is it $60 a tag?
The microchipping is $60 at some veterinarian's offices in town.
Right.
But it doesn't cost them that much. So
Fayetteville Animal Services charges either $50 or $60 for an entire adoption, including the
chipping. So if we can do some things, we need to look at the ordinance very
It's probably
carefully.
at least 30 cost, isn't it? Well, it'd probably be fairly expensive. I wouldn't think
There's
they'd be
it's just a tiny little injection, like a
Right.
needle
Yeah.
injection, and So I don't know, but it's something I'm studying. How do other cities do it? Springdale's been requiring microchipping for a long time, and they're very big fans of it. I mean, to think you can get an animal home before it ever sleeps at animal services one night is, there's some money. I mean, if your animal escapes a lot, 3 or 4 trips up their overnight fees would pay for it. But on the other hand, does having an ordinance have a negative impact on citizens to the point, would someone not take their animal to a vet because she thought that when she got there she'd be charged another $50? I don't know. I don't want to think that people would.
I don't think I'd worry about that.
Okay.
Because that person, I think, is a rare person, just as the person who gets sick and dies from a vaccination.
Yes.
It does happen, but you can't let horror stories like that, which are extremely rare events, keep you from getting vaccinated.
The data I've read and studied and the articles and all certainly say that the pros outweigh the cons in getting animals. It's the best way we have of getting little people who can't talk back to their my little human. I call her little human.
Did I read somewhere in the proposal or in the paper that one of the options is for this to be a voluntary thing, and if you voluntarily have your pet get one of these microchips, then you do not have to have the annual license?
It replaces, I'm not sure what the article said, but it completely replaces the licensing.
It does, but is it something where it's either required for all pet owners or not required at all? Are those the 2 options that you guys have?
That's what I understand.
That's what it looks like the ordinance is going to read.
Really,
yes.
That's what exists now, really.
Would it complicate?
With licensing your ambulance.
Things too much?
But it's
To make
really
it voluntary for those people who want it, the reward is you don't have to get an annual license?
Yeah, I mean, that's something to think about. I think where rubber meets the road on this is when when animals are arriving at the shelter. Vets aren't going to be checking to see if you have a microchip. Vets aren't going to be enforcers of this. People aren't going to be going around and checking your dog to see if it is microchipped. It's mostly about if the animal gets out, can it be returned home, and also if it's a perpetual escapee or neglectful owner, then one, it needs to be spayed or neutered, and then there's another ordinance part that talks about if it's the second offense at the shelter, then they get microchipped and spayed and neutered. Now, I don't think that's the spaying and neuters in this part of it, but they're looking at that as well.
Is the city going to lose a significant source of income by not collecting this fee annually?
I don't know. That's a good question.
Another good thing to say. I have been very impressed with Justine Middleton, our Director of Animal Services. She is so responsive to questions, and that's one I haven't asked, but I think that if you know how to get in touch with your city council person, we can easily get in touch with Justine, or you can email her directly or call. Well, she's very responsive and
I would say that I don't know, on the notes it said absolutely no budget adjustment on this.
Yes.
Which would indicate that no, there's no loss or gain in the budget. There's a little bit more staff.
There's got to be a loss. You're collecting, what is it, $5 a year now, and you collect 0 afterwards? You've got to be losing something.
I guess I'll definitely ask that. I think it apparently breaks even. But we need to look at that, because they were collecting fees on the license, but this is also a license. It's just, you're getting, instead of a tag, you're getting the chip.
$60 is a lot of money for somebody making $7 or $8 or $9 an hour.
yes, it is.
Yeah.
Hoping he gets 40 hours on the job, right? And I can see a lot of unchipped
I think that was the
dogs.
call. The call I got today was it's like, will it be a deterrent from getting licensed
and if
at all?
this is a substitute for licensing, all dogs will be unlicensed. So I think the number of unchipped dogs would be significantly greater than the current number of unlicensed dogs.
And
I think that's one of the unintended consequences you got to look out for.
And I didn't say it very well to Joel when he called for the newspaper to ask me, but what I tried to say was I'd like to see it cost no more than the current license. I hate to see a new fee charged to pet owners. If we could do it for the same price, and that's gonna take cooperation from
And you
the
could
veterinarians
argue,
and
you
the-
get a pup, and you spend $60 on the pup, and you save $4 a year, that's 15 years it pays out.
It pays out.
But to the guy who's making $7 or $8 an hour, hoping he
The
gets a
upfront.
40-hour week, he can't look
The
at
upfront cost
at
is
that way.
serious.
The
Yeah,
upfront
it sure
cost could
is.
be an impediment.
Sure is. Well, that brings me to, that brings me to my little piece here where I wanted to say, we didn't plan this out, we're doing great, aren't we?
Okay, good.
I'm on the nominating committee for the city, and the fourth quarter city board and committee vacancies deadline is the 30th. And there is a space available on the animal services board.
Yeah.
One seat is
I think
available
I
there.
just sent it out via email. So
Good. So let's remember that, November 30th. It'd be great to have some more Ward 4 citizens out there. Very proud of those. I'm also on the street committee, and a couple things I wanted to bring to attention. The folks at Clyburn Creek, I appreciate very much Chris Brown sending to the people at Salem Village and the striping plan, and that's in the works. They're trying to get the weather and all right to get a striping plan to keep the people from going the wrong way on the one way and causing some dangerous situations out there at Salem. Cleveland Street sidewalk improvements, absolutely fabulous. Sarah, all of you before me, and then what a joy it is to walk now. It's poured, they're doing it exactly on schedule. It's poured from Cleveland is a very much used street by people in Ward 4, but particularly people up in University Heights. And now students, little kids can go to school almost all the way to Leverett without crossing at that space on Cleveland, a place on Cleveland where there's no traffic, so they're going so fast through there. So now they'll be able to follow the sidewalk around without crossing the street and then cross at the intersection. And then when the university does its part in front of those, to the north of those dormitories, students will be able to just go all the way to Leverett on the same side of the street. So fabulous improvement. I think, a shout out to Terry Gully and Chris Brown. Another advantage of what they've done is it has narrowed Cleveland in a place where traffic is going too fast. So the design by our engineers is one that is naturally traffic calming and really much better than speed bumps, which is another thing. If you're interested in speed bump issues, we're going to be talking about that at street committee tomorrow night. An unintended consequence of speed bumps is the people go around them to another street. I don't want to go on the speed bumps on this street, so I'll go over to this street, and then these people who are experiencing an increase in traffic. So that's something that we have a lot of citizens concerned about in one part of our town, and that will be coming up tomorrow night at street committee meeting.
I'd like to offer a comment.
I'd love to hear your comment on that. That was why I brought that up.
Okay,
Just
first,
for
there's
Bill
a
Moore to
distinction
tell.
between a speed bump and a speed hump, and a speed table. These are different things. A speed bump is like that. You hit it, you knock your front end out of alignment, right? The speed table is like this, right? And the speed hump is like that. Now, a properly designed speed hump, and this is something I've been preaching ever since previous administration put in the first one of these things around Wilson Park. A properly designed speed hump. 5 miles under the limit, you don't know it's there. At the limit, you're aware of it, it doesn't bother you at all. 5 miles over the limit, you better be belted in, you're gonna hit your head against the roof of the car. Now that's a properly designed hump. The speed humps, the speed tables in this town, by and large, are not properly designed.
They let you go
Thank you for
faster.
sharing that.
Yeah.
What are they calling these that we're talking, anyway, it's the speed tables that you believe are the ones we need to.
Well,
We're gonna
I'll
do
give you
them.
an example. On the north side of Wilson Park, the east-west street, just about in the middle of the park, close to being in front of Steve Frankenberger's house,
Yeah.
there is one
I
of
think
these
that's what
speed
this is.
tables, and you better slow down to about 5 miles an hour to go over it. It's got all kinds of scrape marks on it. It is just an atrocity. And the city ought to be very embarrassed about having put that thing in. It is wrong.
And I think it is the reason this thing's coming up the street.
Yeah,
It's
well,
the,
anybody
the
who's
one?
complaining about that one has a perfectly valid complaint. But the problem is not the concept of speed humps. The problem is the design.
So it's giving them a bad rap.
It's giving them a bad rap.
Good to know. Thank you. So glad I mentioned it.
Let me ask you
Thank
something, let's just a question. I've noticed behind a lot of the speed tables, it looks like the road is eroding quite a bit. In other words, will the properly designed one keep you from causing the road to dip on each side of it? It looks to me like over time you'll have more maintenance with these. I'm thinking of the ones coming off Craig Street in particular.
Yeah,
The
they
road's
do.
pretty
They
rough
dip.
through there.
Looks like that someone's taken a shovel and dug out.
It seems to,
Probably
on
'cause
on
they
the
haven't
down,
been
on the
digging
down road side, it seems like it creates a depression. Sometimes when you're driving that, look at it, they've
Oh, yeah,
only been in
I
there a few
noticed.
years, but the two that go from North Street,
They do.
down,
dip
it
on-
looks like you dig a hole if you're not careful.
Because I always try to go around it.
Right.
Do you think the material that they
Well, it may, I don't know,
use
just maybe the impact, I don't know, I thought
Yeah.
maybe, when you were talking
I
about it.
don't know about that.
And
That's
I
good.
just, when you mentioned it, yeah.
I'm so
if
glad
the
I
other one-
mentioned that. That's a,
But
yeah.
sometimes notice that you tend to, on the downstream, downhill side, well, the backside of it,
Yeah.
if you notice they start to cup out after a period of time. And it would seem to me that if you impacted it day after day, then it would create that, I don't know how you avoid it, but it may just be a part of
I will ask that tomorrow night, and I'll talk
That-
about
that-
design too.
What you just said makes a lot of sense. If there's impact, time after time, as it gets used, that impact will eventually cause a depression.
Run it
That's
out
just
on the other
logical
side.
and it makes sense. I'd like to suggest that with a properly designed speed hump, the impact
Won't do that,
will be
will be
there.
minimal.
Yeah.
Do you
Speed
think our
table.
police department has thoughts on speed tables and humps and bumps and?
Well, our community-oriented policing division has some set national standards originally when the whole topic was brought up on where they should and should not be put in. I can't tell you where and how our traffic division and our engineering and all of that has worked together over that. The short and long of it is we definitely, we run surveys to try to provide information on speed and traffic flow location when we can. But the design of this is, we leave to the people that design roadways. We don't get involved in trying to design roadways any more than where our expertise lies in it, which is what is traffic doing, okay, and what options are out there nationally. But beyond that, we just provide the information and step back and let the experts do what they do.
What about our firefighters? Have you ever taken a truck over one of those things when you didn't realize you forgot it was there?
On occasion it happens. It does, slows us down a little bit sometimes. I know it calms traffic, but you can imagine going through in a larger vehicle like a fire truck, sometimes we have to pay attention. Not that we're not always paying attention, but we have to pay close
But you're
attention.
thinking about a lot of things at once.
Yeah, the location of them, and it doesn't take long to memorize those particular sections of town, and then you just have to be cautious about how you approach it.
Well, I know an EMS driver told me personally how sorry he was about hitting it with my mother-in-law in the back. It was very bad. So I don't know. I think there are a lot of things to consider there in design and
Absolutely.
so thank you. Thank y'all for your
We're
input.
trying to take care
Thank
of the
you.
equipment,
Yeah.
and I know they are on the ambulances, and I'm sure the police, when they're going in and out of a section of town that have those kinds of things to look out for, then, we can't just go through there like we're on a roller coaster and we hit it and tear the front end out. We have to be cautious about protecting the equipment for the future, so something else that we're mindful of.
It's tough.
Yeah, that's one reason I like the narrowing of the top of Cleveland is it's a good way to slow people down, but without putting in the speed table.
Very exciting.
I think like everything, there's a proper design, place, and time for everything, and at one point they were putting them everywhere. It's like too much of any good thing is too much. So, one thing I would like to give an update on, and it is I met out on Weddington. There's a neighborhood where they're having trouble with traffic. The church is meeting, and then the traffic's going through the neighborhood, And also there's a drainage problem with, like the way they designed it, the neighborhood drained this way and the business development drained this way, and they didn't, it's collecting in an area that's causing flooding in the driving area. So I met with Sarah Reed out there, and also the engineer for the bank and the church area met us. It's within a year of the design, so it's under warranty, so the engineer is still a part of that conversation, which is really good. And so they were drafting a recommendation for how to get the water to drain into the grassy area, so that it wouldn't pool into the driveway. So I was waiting on hearing from Sarah on that. And then also the Illinois River Watershed Partnership may get involved. We're requesting they're building rain gardens all over the Illinois River watershed, and this is a good location for one, considering they're gonna drain that area, and so they need locations, so they're gonna apply to do that there. As far as the traffic, it's a little bit difficult. They were gonna meet with the church and see if they could encourage people not to drive through the neighborhood and meet around here and have a little more traffic, I guess, direction, and keep people from being in the neighborhood as much, where the houses are as much, so that people can come in and go. So that's ongoing. There's also a notification question about how do we notify people in regard to property owners association. So if at a property owners association common property abuts a development that's going to be rezoned, who do you notify? Do you notify the person that's on the county register as the point person for that POA, or do you notify all the people who own that property, which can be 100 people all invested in that one little triangle at the entrance of a POA? Those are all property owners, but there's one person listed who may be long gone and moved on, and that may be outdated, so nobody gets notified of a new neighboring development. So I've been learning about what is existing, and it's slow going, but it's so I'm trying to decide what's the best route. Do we really need to amend something, or is it just about our own policy? Like, can the city just as a resolution say, the council, we request that you notify all the owners that are listed as part of that, or is it require an ordinance? So that's where that is. Really, is just me asking a lot of questions and trying to figure out what the best route is. All right. Any other final comments or questions?
Yeah, on the streets, Arkansas Street and Lafayette Street, as they go through the university, saying up to Maple. And I'm sure it's not new. They've been rough for years. They've been patched. They really look like they needed chewed up and relayed.
And I think the plan is to do that after that construction. There are so many trucks going in and out of there. I don't know about a plan, but it's discussion that I've heard that, you know, when they were talking about coming straight up Lafayette and going right up Old Main Lawn to do the work on the buildings on campus, that we got that shut down, but they've rerouted that now to come out on that north. They go towards Maple, heading north from the center of campus, right? You know where I'm talking about? And so there's a lot of wear and tear going on, and more to come.
So you're talking about on Lafayette, like the bridge?
We're talking about Maple.
Not the bridge, but I'm pretty sure it's on Lafayette as you go up the hill and down, maybe right at the intersection. Just in general, it seems like there's several spots where the pavement's rough. It's developed holes. They fill them, but
it's rough on a bicycle, I can tell you for sure. You hit those things. I'll ask about that tomorrow night and get a little more information.
I've been thinking about that.
I hate those speed bumps on my bicycle. That is,
You need a mountain bike.
I'm on a bicycle more often than I'm in an ambulance, so
Like for Aubrey's, some of these rough patches that slow people down. We need to put signs up.
I'll ask about that. Thanks for raising that.
One thing, I'm not going to name them off, but I'll share them with you. There's a lot of events this weekend that I hope you'll get out and go to around town that are like arts events, and I brought a bunch of flyers for you to check out, but I hope you'll get out and see there's a festival in the downtown area on the 4th, and then, but all like Canadian Bomb Studios and different little kind of art shows that are going on this weekend, and like a whole bunch of them. So it's like a weekend to get out and see local art. So I brought these for you to look at if you wanted to. But is there anything else? Well, with that, we'll close, and thank you so much for coming, and I appreciate your good discussion and thoughtful questions. So
Thanks, police and fire for coming.
Yeah.
And Ward 4 is and friends now.
Oh yeah, Ward 4 and friends. And that's
we-
Rhonda's good
I
idea,
noticed
I love
that,
it.
I saw
That
that.
is her good
I
idea,
did check
that's
some
great.
help with it, but
Thank you.
but those of you, we're missing some special people tonight, Keith and Laverne and Beth and
Yeah.
Louise, and so our Ward 4 people, we miss you when you're not here. Come back.
That's
We'll
right.
see in January. We're not gonna meet in December.
Oh, yes,
But
yeah,
we'll be
sure.
back last Monday night in January. We'll send out announcement and agenda and have a very
Very good.
happy holiday to everyone in Ward 4 and the city of Fayetteville.
That's right. Thank you. We're adjourned.